So you're thinking about moving abroad and think it's gonna be all perfect like you see on Instagram? Well, it's not. We hate to break it to you, but there are some pros and cons that come with living abroad. We're gonna explore some of the pros and cons with living abroad to help you make your decision about whether you should move abroad or not. Let's go. We'll get this out of the way right away. The number one biggest disadvantage is missing friends and family. You're obviously going to be living in a different country across the world, so it's going to be hard to get home and visit your friends and family for birthdays, for small celebrations, heck, even just for happy hours. It's gonna suck not being able to see them and being a much longer flight away, including going through customs, just to be able to hang out with them. However, thanks to Skype, FaceTime, everything we've learned throughout the pandemic, it's a lot easier to be able to talk to them and to be able to stay in touch. So that's a little benefit, but it is going to suck missing them. The second biggest con that a lot of people don't tell you about is all the paperwork. When you're a resident of a country, just as we are in the United States, when we lived there, we didn't have to go to a bunch of different offices and make photocopies just to get a residency card, just to get a bank account, just to do all these little things that when you're living somewhere as a foreigner, you have to do. It can be a big headache and really stressful, especially if the people who are looking at those documents are super strict about the way they have to be, the way they are here in Spain. So dealing with all this paperwork and bureaucracy and all these things can be a big headache abroad, but remember, it's probably just as big of a headache in your own country for people living abroad there. But it's definitely a big downside to living abroad and something you're going to have to deal with year after year living abroad than it is if you're living in your home country. The third con to living abroad can be the language barrier. Living your life in a country where they speak another language can be simply amazing. You get to learn the world through a whole new lens, speaking a different language, learning a new culture, and really getting to know people on a different level than if you're only able to speak English or your home language. However, it can also be annoying at times because sometimes you can't express yourself. Sometimes just doing simple tasks can be overwhelming and just seem like too much. And without the support of a lot of your friends and family there, that can make it even more difficult. Sometimes you just want to relax and watch The Office at home in English just to get a break from the language spoken outside of the house. However, the biggest con to this is really that it can make all those small tasks seem all the more overwhelming. Speaking of these small tasks, that brings us to con number 4. Number 4 is all the small things. No, not the Blink-182 song. However, all the small things such as finding an apartment, getting a bank account, going to the doctor or pharmacy, paying bills, speaking with your landlord about little issues, or even doing regular everyday tasks can just seem more overwhelming because they're all new. The country you're living in probably has a little bit different system than the one you're used to. You're also probably going to be experiencing little things that you wouldn't have had to do back home because, like we said before, you are a citizen. All of these little tasks can take so much longer living abroad, and it's definitely one of the downsides of living abroad. This brings us to the 5th con of living abroad, jobs and salary. Now remember, most people living abroad are probably doing so more for the experience than specifically because they found a job that they really love. Most people accept a job abroad because they want to experience living abroad. They want to do all the amazing things that come with living abroad. However, they also have to work maybe part-time or full-time in this job that they don't really love, and even for a salary that's maybe not what they're making back home and doesn't allow them to live their lifestyle that they're used to. You might not be able to buy some of those products that you're accustomed to buying. You might not be able to go out to eat as much, which is why it's important to always research where you're going, what the salary is, and what the cost of living is before actually making that move abroad. However, there are a lot of incredible things most people get to do when they're living abroad, which are all the things you see on Instagram and other social media and all the things you envision yourself doing. However, it can really suck having to sit at a job you don't like for most of your work week just to be able to do the things you want at night or on the weekends. This is something to keep in mind that a lot of people don't think about when they're dreaming of those perfect vacations, the great views, all the new food they're going to get to eat when they make the decision to live abroad. So keep that in mind before you move abroad. Lastly, we touched on missing friends from back home, but the last con is making friends. This kind of goes with language barrier, but it can be incredibly difficult to make new friends. In a lot of cultures, people are very close-knit, and it can often be difficult to meet strangers, especially if you're the one foreigner in potentially a smaller city or even a bigger city where people have their groups of friends and they're not as willing to let new people into those groups. This is definitely something to keep in mind when you're looking at moving abroad. Everyone dreams that they're going to make a bunch of new friends from all over the world, and this will happen, but you also have to put yourself out there or get involved in different groups. It can be kind of a pro and a con, but because it can be so difficult, this is why we put it in the con section, because it doesn't happen for everyone immediately as we think it will when we're preparing to move abroad. Now this brings us to the pros of living abroad. This is the section we all dream about. This is the amazing things. So to start us off, we have to start with travel, the most obvious. When you're living in a new country, in a new city, you get to travel every single day. Every single day you're learning something new about the culture you're in. You're learning something new about the places you're in. You get to travel on the weekends. Everywhere is new for you. It's like you're on vacation almost all day, other than potentially when you are sitting in that job you don't really like. But being able to travel all over the world, being able to do that is something everybody dreams of, and it's definitely a pro that comes with moving abroad. Every day is really like a vacation because you constantly get to learn new things. Your brain's constantly stimulated by learning new facts, little pieces of history, and little parts of the culture. This is one of the reasons we love living abroad and why most people want to do it. So that's why we have to put it at number 1 at the pros of living abroad. Tied to that, number 2 is you're learning all the time. Every single day you can learn a bit of the language. You can learn some of the culture. You can learn a little bit about the history. You get to learn little facts or little legends about different areas where you're at. You get to learn people's life stories. You get to meet new people. Learning all the time keeps your brain active, and it's something we love about living abroad and something that we bet a lot of you do too. So it's definitely a huge pro when you're considering moving abroad. The third pro of living abroad is experiences. You get to have new experiences all the time. This comes with meeting people. Maybe you go to their families, you have dinner with them, you get to have some traditional meal, you get to experience new holidays in the places you're at. You simply get to experience things you wouldn't if you were back at home. Not that those things aren't awesome and cool back home, but this is something new that's potentially a once-in-a-lifetime experience, especially if your plan is just to live abroad for a year or for a small amount of time. The fourth pro of living abroad is meeting people. While meeting new friends and new people can seem almost impossible at first when you first move abroad, it can easily become one of the best things about moving abroad, even better than travel. The reason for that is people truly start to accept you into their own families, into their own groups of friends, and you can really feel like you're part of the culture and get to experience some things that you might not before. For example, going to family dinners, going to holidays with families, potentially doing something with friends that you wouldn't have ever done just being a traveler or a tourist in a city. You also might even be able to go to someone's wedding, experience something like that no traveler would ever be able to see just simply visiting in a country on vacation. Now on to number 5. One of our favorite pros about living abroad is the food. I mean, come on. We love to eat. You love to eat. We know that we all love trying new food from all over the world. Even if you're a little bit of a picky eater, one of the best things to do is to try food from all over the place. You can learn so much about a culture and make so many connections just through the food alone. And being able to try new food from a culture every single day can be amazing. Now, if you're living in a small city that doesn't have food perhaps from your culture or from a ton of other cultures, it can get a little old maybe eating that food day after day after day, especially if you're living abroad there for a long time. However, you can always cook your own food at home. I know it's fun to eat out, but simply being able to try food from a different culture and not being limited to simply a week vacation like we're accustomed to in the US is one of the huge pros of being able to live abroad, especially like we said, because you can learn so much through food about a culture. The last and perhaps most important pro about living abroad is being able to challenge yourself. Living abroad is going to challenge you in more ways than you could even imagine. We touched on some of them here in the cons of living abroad, such as the paperwork, the bureaucracy, dealing with little things like that. But you also have to get used to being in a place you're not used to, being alone a lot of the time. Perhaps, especially if you're living abroad by yourself, going out to eat by yourself, being more extroverted if you're introverted, being more introverted if you're extroverted. A lot of those things can be really difficult and test you as a person. However, we believe that living abroad is something everyone should do in their life, because not only do you get to experience what life is like as a foreigner living in a new country, which can give you some compassion to other people who do that, but living abroad really allows you to learn so much about yourself, because you have to be self-reliant. You learn that you can trust yourself in different situations, that you can survive, that you are able to do things. This is one of the best things about living abroad. And it's honestly one of the best things about traveling solo. So we moved abroad together. However, we have traveled solo separately. And if living abroad isn't in the cards for you, we do recommend that you travel solo at least once in your life. It's something everyone should do in their lives. You learn so much about yourself, you gain so much confidence. You're really able to do whatever you want. You don't have to stick to anyone's schedule. And that goes with living abroad too. You get to do what you want. If you kind of want to reinvent yourself, you're able to. You don't have those ties, preconceived notions from back home from a lot of the people you know, which can make it difficult. However, being able to live abroad and be self-reliant and gain that confidence from knowing you can survive in another country, work in another country, live in another country, and be okay while seeing all this amazing things, going through all these ups and downs of moving abroad, is one of the best things that you can do in your life. And it's the best thing, the biggest advantage, the biggest pro of living abroad, which is why we recommend it. Now, if you've ever lived abroad, drop some of the pros and cons of living abroad in the comments below. We'd love to read them. If you're thinking about moving abroad and have some questions, drop those in the comments and we'd be more than happy to help you out. If you like this video, please give us a like below, hit that thumbs up button. Also, click subscribe if you want to see more videos like this about what it's like living abroad and about traveling in Spain. You'll be able to see more of those. We come out with a new video about every week. Also, make sure to check out our other videos about life here in Spain as an American and traveling all over Spain to find some awesome things to do on your next trip here. We'll see you over there. Bye.